I am going to tell you a horror story that happened to me when I was 21 years old. I was working as a medic in Afghanistan. We had just finished our shift in the emergency room, and we were heading home. Our convoy was made up of 2 vehicles. I was in the back of one of them with 3 other medics. The windows were open because it was such a nice night, and we were just heading back from a 12-hour shift. So we were tired, and we were just kind of enjoying the ride. About 15 minutes into the ride, we started hearing these weird noises. At first, we thought it was just some gunfire in the distance. But then the sound started getting louder and it sounded like it was coming from above us. It was this really weird, like whooshing noise. So the driver of our vehicle stopped and got out with a big grin on his face. He said, "Guys, you gotta look at this." He pointed up to the sky and sure enough, there was this huge cloud above us that looked like it was almost glowing, a greenish color. I remember distinctly thinking, "Oh my God, that looks like a giant, like a jellyfish or something. It's like the size of a house." Within seconds, though, that cloud started to rapidly descend down towards us. Before any of us could react, this massive, like translucent, see-through jellyfish-like creature landed in the street in front of us. I'll never forget the look on the driver's face. His eyes were wide with terror and he started screaming at the top of his lungs. I remember distinctly thinking, "Oh my God, this is it. This is how we die. This is how we get killed over here." The creature started to slowly, like ooze and squish its way towards us. Its tentacles were trailing behind it, and they were wrapped around each other like a big ball of yarn. And then all of a sudden, one of the tentacles shot out and wrapped itself around the driver's neck and pulled him down to the ground. Another one of the tentacles then shot out and grabbed the medic next to me and pulled him out of the vehicle. I remember distinctly thinking, "Oh my God, I'm next. It's gonna grab me and I'm gonna die." But before it could do anything, I started screaming as loud as I possibly could. I don't know what came over me. I just started screaming and making tons of noise. And the creature seemed to pause for a second. I don't know if it was startled by my screaming or what, but it gave me just enough time to jump out of the vehicle and run to the other side of the street. The other medic in our vehicle started screaming and making tons of noise as well. And I don't know if that distracted the creature or what, but it seemed to focus its attention on him instead of me. I remember distinctly seeing it wrap one of its tentacles around his leg and pull him down to the ground. That's when I started running. I ran as fast as I could away from the creature. I didn't dare look back. I didn't want to see what happened to the other medic. I didn't want to see what was going to happen to me next. I don't remember much after that. The next thing I remember is waking up in the back of an ambulance, and one of the medics from our team was kneeling next to me asking me questions. He was asking me things like, "Do you know where you are? Do you know what happened?" I obviously didn't know what happened. I had no idea what he was talking about. I was very confused. He then started telling me that I had been found wandering around the street in a state of undress. My pants were torn and my shirt was ripped. I still remember to this day how embarrassed I was. Here I am, a medic, supposed to be in charge of my situation, supposed to be in charge of my team, and I'm found wandering around in a state of undress. No idea what happened, no idea where my team is. It took me a long time to recover from that mentally. I felt like I had let my team down. I felt like I had not done my job. I have tons of guilt associated with that event. I still to this day don't know what happened to the other medics. I don't know what happened to that creature. There's a lot of things that I talk about when it comes to my time in the military. Things that I can't talk about for operational security reasons or for other reasons as well. But this is one of those things that to this day I can't talk about. I can't discuss what happened to me, what I saw. No one else knows what happened. I have no closure. That's why I decided to share it with you guys today. Hopefully you enjoyed this different style of storytelling. If you did, please make sure to subscribe. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great day. I woke up on an operating table. My arms were spread wide and my legs locked in place with metal clamps. Above me, harsh white light blinded me. It felt like a spotlight on a stage, and on that stage, a crowd of figures were gearing at me. Then a figure detached itself from the crowd, slowly floated towards me and loomed over my face. Its eyes glinted with amusement. It was dressed in what looked like a lab coat, but it was strangely beautiful, elegant even. The sight of it sent shivers down my spine. It leaned closer and whispered in my ear, "Wake up." Its voice sounded like nails scratching down a chalkboard. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My throat was parched, my mouth so dry I couldn't even make a whisper. As it continued to stare at me, I managed to focus my eyes and saw the face of my greatest fear reflected in its eyes. It wasn't my face. It was the face of the creature that had abducted me. When it saw that I had woken up, the creature barked orders in a language I didn't understand. Suddenly, clamps were attached to my ankles, my wrists, and my torso. Then they began to lift me off the table, but not in a way that would allow me to escape. Oh no! They suspended me in the air, dangling me like a puppet, swinging me side to side. Then one of the creatures approached me and cut open my shirt, ripping off my clothes until I was naked. A sharp prick on my chest brought me back to reality. I was being injected. Each movement of the needles sent fresh jolts of pain through me. But the most terrifying part was that I couldn't stop them. I was completely defenseless. The process repeated itself several times. First the injection, then a series of prods and pokes by sharp instruments. At some point, they inserted something long and hard into me. The pain was unbearable. I struggled against my bonds, but it was useless. They finally dropped me back onto the table, and the operations began. First, they removed my left eye. The burning, searing pain was enough to make me black out, but when I came to, they were probing the sockets where my eye used to be. Then they did the same to my right eye. After that, they turned their attention to my abdomen. I watched in horror as they made several incisions, each one deeper than the last. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they stopped. As they worked, I noticed strange symbols carved into the table around the indentations made by the clamps holding me down. I tried to focus, to commit those symbols to memory, hoping I could use them to identify my abductors, should I ever find the opportunity. One of the creatures stood up, signaling the end of the operation. They all filed out of the room, leaving me alone, covered in blood and my guts spilling out onto the cold, hard surface. Time seemed to have stopped. All I could do was stare at the symbols on the table, willing myself to get up, to run away and never look back. But suddenly, a new sound filled the room. The door slid open and a new set of creatures entered. They were different from the others, more animalistic if that's even possible. Where the others had been humanoid, these were all teeth and claws. One of them padded up to me, sniffed at my exposed flesh, and let out a screeching bark. Then it did something that made my blood run cold. It picked up my severed left eye, tossed it in the air, and caught it in its mouth. The eye still had its socket attached to it, still moist, still wet. The creature barked again, this time nudging the eye towards me. I wanted to tell it to go away, to leave me alone. But as I opened my mouth to speak, it shoved the eye inside. Pain seared through my head. I thrashed about, but my restraints held firm. The creature screeched again, then leaped back, staring at me with wild, crazed eyes. And that's when I knew my fate. These creatures weren't just going to experiment on me. They were going to kill me, and they wanted me to watch as they did it. I am going to tell you a scary story about an alien that I saw with my own eyes. It all started when I was 16 years old and living in Oregon. I was hanging out with some friends in a small town of Sisters, which is a great place to go hiking. There are all these cool trails that go into the woods and you can see all kinds of cool stuff. It's also a great place to stargaze, because there isn't much light pollution. So one night we decided to drive up to a spot called Black Butte, which is a peak overlooking Sisters. We got there around 11 p.m., and it was freezing cold. The plan was to hike to the top of the peak, pitch our tents, and then spend the night looking at the stars. But when we got to the top, we realized it was too cold to pitch our tent. So we just got in our car and started driving home. On the way down, we stopped at a turnout to let some other hikers pass. And while we were sitting there, I noticed something strange in the forest below us. At first I thought it was a bear, but it didn't look like a bear. It looked more like a large dog. And then I thought, no dog could be out here in this weather. So I rolled down my window and started yelling at it to get out of the forest. That's when I saw it. It had big glowing red eyes, kind of like a cat's eyes, except much larger. And it had long droopy ears like a bloodhound. It took off running into the forest, and I remember thinking, what the hell was that? The next day I told my friends what I had seen, but they just laughed and said it was probably just a bear. But I knew it wasn't a bear. Bears don't have glowing red eyes and droopy ears. Fast forward 20 years and I'm still thinking about that strange creature. I became an outdoorsman and have hiked all over the western United States. And every time I hike, I keep an eye out for that creature. I've never seen it again, but I've found some strange things in the woods that I can't explain. For example, I once found a strange imprint in the mud that looked like a giant's footprint. And another time, I found a weird rock monolith in the forest that looked like it had been carved by a human. Even though I was sure I was the first person to ever come across it, there are so many unexplained things in our world that I do unthink we're alone in the universe. I think that creature that I saw was an alien. I believe that there are all kinds of aliens living in our world. Some of them friendly, and some of them not so friendly. And I know that sounds crazy, but hear me out. The government has been spying on us for decades. They've been tracking our phone calls, reading our emails, and even hacking into our computers. Do you really think that they wouldn't be interested in learning about aliens? I mean, think about it. If we're able to discover aliens, then that would be the most important discovery in human history. It would completely change the way that we view our place in the universe. And if the government had the opportunity to learn about aliens before the rest of the world, they wouldn't be able to resist. Think about all the UFO sightings that have been covered up over the years. The government has a long history of denying the existence of UFOs, but there have been so many sightings that it would be impossible for all of them to be fake. Take the Roswell incident, for example. In 1947, a rancher found some strange debris on his property and immediately called the police. The police reported that they had recovered a disc from the ranch and that the military had come to take it. But the next day, the military released a statement saying that the disc was actually a balloon from a local ranch. But the rancher had said that he had found no balloon, and that he had seen a military truck take something away from the site. The government has denied the existence of aliens for so long that people have started to believe them, but I think that there's a lot of evidence to suggest that aliens are real. If you're open-minded about this topic, I encourage you to do your own research. There are so many strange things happening in our world that we can't explain, and I think that it's time that we start paying attention. What do you think? Are there aliens living among us? Let me know in the comments below.